This podcast is brought to you by Three Rivers Energy Partners. In today's episode of Digest This, North American RNG production capacity has grown by 35% since 2023.
Quebec's just throwing real money at RNG project capital costs.
Michigan's aiming for 100% clean energy by 2040 with landfill and food waste in the mix. And New Mexico just set a really ambitious clean fuel standard. Welcome to Digest This, Unpacking Our Sustainable Future, where we dive deep into the latest developments in sustainability and renewable energy. Join us in exploring the pioneering solutions and technologies that are shaping our future. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Digest This. I'm Alex, joined as always by Emily. Today's episode is all about the big moves in renewables, solar setting the pace, some wild political swings, and what that means as we barrel toward 2026. Emily, you catch that new Federal Energy Regulatory Commission report?
Yeah, Alex, I was just digging into it before we started recording. Honestly, it's kind of jaw-dropping. 91% of new generation added in the first 5 months of 2025, and 11.5 gigawatts of that was solar, which is, pretty much off the charts if you look historically.
Exactly. I mean, we've been talking about solar's momentum for what feels like years, but this is another level. It just keeps outperforming. And even with all these, let's say, not-so-friendly winds coming out of DC, it's still coming online faster and, frankly, cheaper than just about anything else. That's according to FERC, and even SEIA's folks are out there saying the same.
Right, although I think it's worth noting a lot of that data predates the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that policy mega bill that puts a squeeze on tax credits for renewables. It's not just political theater. It's already led to guidance from Treasury that could tighten up even more. And still the project pipeline keeps growing. There's clearly so much market demand right now for renewables.
Totally. And what's wild is, even with the administration putting speed bumps in the way, stop work orders, guidance changes, all that, the American grid is still adding miles and miles of new lines. You see Colorado adding those big 345 kV lines?
I sure have.
Anyway, point is, solar has been for 21 months in a row the number one new source of power, even with all this policy turbulence.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, maybe even in our stalled momentum episode, about how federal policy uncertainty tends to make industry folks a little, apprehensive. But demand is just so high, especially for small-scale systems, rooftop arrays, community solar. FERC's data doesn't even count a lot of those. Right now, it's about a quarter of all U.S. electricity that's coming from renewables. That's, really something.
For sure. And then, when you factor in hydro, biomass, geothermal, you're looking at a third of our utility-scale capacity from renewables now. The transmission build-out is the next frontier, but we can't ignore how dominant solar's been, even in a tough policy moment. But speaking of tough, should we talk about RNG next? Because that space is, heating up.
All right, let's shift gears. So, big headline. According to Wood Mackenzie, North American RNG production capacity has grown by 35% since 2023. That's up to 604 million cubic feet a day. It's impressive, but when you start digging, it's also clear we're still way below the resource's full potential. Like less than half of what we could be doing by 2050, if I remember right.
Yeah, and that kind of parallels what we saw in renewables a while back, right? I mean, it's growing, sure, but a lot of that's riding on the back of both investment momentum and policy support. And there's, tons of M&A going on lately? You've got companies showing confidence. Emily, you've looked into the policy stuff more than just about anyone I know. What stands out to you this year?
Well, there's honestly a lot that's making folks nervous. Federal policies have really been a mixed bag. Take the Renewable Fuel Standard, RFS, for example, which does set some targets to 2025, but then there's this whole ERINS piece that just didn't make it into the final EPA rules. And then the 45V tax credit for clean hydrogen that was part of the IRA that got the axe in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act after this year. It's sending mixed signals to investors and developers. You end up with, how do I put this, kind of a roller coaster for some projects' economics.
Exactly. And with all that regulatory uncertainty, it's tough to stabilize prices for environmental attributes or boost long-term confidence. Yet, with so much merger activity and these big capacity jumps, what was it, 70 million cubic feet a day just this year alone? People are betting that eventually the policy will settle down in favor of investment.
Completely. And then when you look at the map, you've got growth happening basically everywhere, across the US and Canada, across all sorts of feedstocks. So let's talk about the states. You start to see this kind of resilience coming from places like California, Michigan, and New Mexico, but also up north in Alberta and Quebec. California's tightening up its low-carbon fuel standard rules for biomethane. Michigan's aiming for 100% clean energy by 2040 with landfill and food waste in the mix. And New Mexico just set a really ambitious clean fuel standard. It's like while the federal scene gets more unpredictable, these states and provinces are really holding the line on support.
And not to forget, Canada's playing hardball with methane regs on landfill emissions, while Alberta is incentivizing animal manure digesters. Look, not the world's sexiest technology, but it moves the needle. Plus, Quebec's just throwing real money at RNG project capital costs. This regional resilience is actually what's helping a lot of projects. It kind of reminds me of what we saw in our Clean Energy Comeback episode, where states were just not waiting for the feds and took matters into their own hands.
Totally. But the flip side is, costs are still a real barrier for RNG. High costs keep a lot of newer developers out, and that's where incentives can really help. But more than half of U.S. RNG production is still tied to the transport sector. That's great for meeting current policy targets, but it can't be the only game in town.
Costs are no joke, and expanding beyond transport is kind of the million-dollar question. We're starting to see utilities, corporates, even some international buyers come into the picture. I think, as we move forward, it's going to take both nimble state policy and some bold utility leadership, plus more innovation in how we package and deliver these products to industrial and corporate customers. Otherwise, we'll stay stuck in niche sectors. But Emily, as always, I'm looking forward to seeing where this market, this whole ecosystem really, heads next.
Me too, Alex. And for our listeners, we hope you'll join us next time as we keep following the policy shifts, business moves, and all the surprises from the world of sustainable energy. Thanks for tuning in to Digest This. Alex, always a pleasure.
Likewise, Emily. Thanks everyone for listening. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to Digest This, Unpacking Our Sustainable Future, a Three Rivers Energy Partners podcast. Three Rivers Energy Partners is a renewable energy company that empowers organizations with the ability to create a sustainable future by converting organic waste streams into renewable energy and resources. To get the latest episode of Digest This, or to find out more about Three Rivers Energy Partners, visit threeriversenergy.com or find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. The sustainable future is being created right now. Keep exploring and keep up to speed with the latest in renewable energy and sustainability. See you next time.